Have you ever heard of the Quinkins? Perhaps the name doesn't ring a bell. It's an ancient term from Australian Aboriginal dreamings, a lore passed down through countless generations. These spirits are often described as mischievous, sometimes playful entities. But let me assure you, what I encountered that fateful night was far from playful. It was something dark, something sinister, something I'll never forget. When I was younger, my brother and I often ventured out to the river for camping trips. Our favorite spot was Big Bend, a secluded area surrounded by dense bushland and crowned with a deep waterhole. It was the kind of place where the beauty of the day turned into an eerie mystery at night. On one such trip, my stepbrother and his girlfriend tagged along. Looking back now, I wish they hadn't. It was on that trip that we came face to face with the unexplainable. The night began like any other. After setting up camp, we spent the evening sharing laughs, roasting marshmallows, and exchanging stories. My stepbrother, ever the storyteller, decided to regale us with tales of Aboriginal spirits. His voice lowered conspiratorially as he introduced us to the Quinkins. These spirits, he claimed, lurked in the shadows, watching and waiting. While some stories described them as harmless pranksters, others told of something far more malevolent. I was intrigued, but not yet afraid. After all, stories were just stories, weren't they? As midnight approached, the four of us decided to explore a nearby clearing. The moonlight cast an otherworldly glow on the landscape, illuminating the towering rock wall that flanked the large waterhole. My stepbrother continued his stories, trying to spook us with tales of strange disappearances and ghostly sightings. I rolled my eyes, chalking it up to his usual antics. But then, he stopped. Abruptly. Without a word, he turned and sprinted down the dirt path, leaving us frozen in confusion. "What's wrong with him?" I asked, half laughing. Before my brother could respond, we saw it. Or rather, them. On the far side of the waterhole, shadowy figures emerged. At first, they were indistinct, dark forms blending into the jagged rock wall. But as our eyes adjusted, we saw them clearly. Human-shaped, yet disturbingly wrong. They weren't walking, they were dragging themselves up the cliff face, limbs jerking unnaturally as they ascended. "Is that people?" my brother whispered, his voice trembling. We watched in horrified silence as 5 or 6 of these figures reached the top. They lay there for a moment, their heads and torsos hanging over the edge, as if contemplating the abyss below. Then, without warning, they leaned forward and plunged off the cliff. Their bodies struck the rocks on the way down, a sickening series of thuds that made my stomach churn. They hit the water with a final splash, vanishing beneath the surface. Panic set in. "We need to help them," my brother shouted, already moving toward the waterhole. "Wait!" I grabbed his arm, pointing back to the water. The ripples had started to settle, but something was emerging. One by one, the figures resurfaced. They floated upright, their faces, if you could call them that, turned directly toward us.